Welcome to Straight from the Gavel. I'm your host, Dave Barber, and if this room looks familiar, it's probably for good reason. We cover a lot of events here in the House Finance room, and that's where this show is emanating from today. And I'm pleased to announce that we have a gentleman making his first appearance on Straight from the Gavel. He represents East and West Greenwich. It is my pleasure indeed to welcome here the Honorable State Representative Anthony Giarrusso. Rep, great to see you, sir.
Thanks for having me. Great to see you too, Dave.
You know, and I mentioned that it's your first appearance, and you're a relatively new state representative. So we always like to set the theme a little bit at the beginning to allow you, the guest, to tell our viewers a little about yourself, both personally and professionally.
Geez, where do I begin? Well, my four brothers and my parents, we came here from Italy in 1966. I was just 4 years old. And we settled a stone's throw away from this building. As a matter of fact, my first job was delivering newspapers for the Providence Journal Bulletin, and one of my customers was the Honorable J. Joseph Garrahy when he was the Lieutenant Governor. So we grew up in this area. We played baseball every single day, that even sometimes in the rain, until it got dark, right here on the State House lawn. So you know, it was all about the things that we did around here, and we were, you know, I was educated in the Providence School Department, and all the way through.
And I had a chance to meet your wife recently, a very lovely lady, and you have kids too, right?
I have 4 children.
And you're quite the entrepreneur. I believe you have a pretty big jewelry business here in Rhode Island. Tell us about that.
Well, we started, my brothers and I, you know, all 5 of us. Just the 5 of us started back in 1986. So it's been, you know, we're getting close to 30 years in business. And we started in this little hole in the wall on Valley Street in Providence. And about a year later, we were already starting to become a little successful. We bought a small building in Cranston, about 5,000 square feet. And then about 4 years later, we bought a place in Johnston, which is about 30,000 square feet. And that's where we are today.
Well, listen, that only happened because business must have been good, and that's certainly good news. How many employees do you have?
We have about 100. But, you know, business is good, you know, thankfully. But, you know, the old saying when I was back in business school, you know, I had professors that said that the wind doesn't always blow in the same direction. If you're sailing, you have to adjust your sails. And I have to say, you know, my brothers and I, we made a lot of tough decisions, and a lot of them that you can look back on and say, had we not done that, we wouldn't be in business today. And, you know, they were very tough decisions. You know, we took some chances. You know, there was a lot of risk involved. You know, it wasn't easy. It wasn't handed to us. It wasn't something given to us from our grandparents and our parents. So we look back and we're very, very fortunate. But we're also very smart too.
When you came here at age 4 from Italy, did you speak English then, or did you just speak Italian?
Geez, I think I just spoke Italian. My name was Antonio, then Angelo was Angelo, and then Giovanni became John, Matteo became Matt, Franco became Frank, and I became Anthony on day 1. And we learned the language. That was a prerequisite. As a matter of fact, this is a side note. One of my brothers, my brother Matt, which is the next one in line, he's the one that's oldest, not the oldest, he's the middle one. But he was placed, he was 8 years old when we came here. And they had him, they had a mix-up. And instead of them putting him 1 grade lower, they put him 1 grade higher. So as a result, he graduated when he just turned 17 years old. I mean, talk about being handicapped. It was his second language, and he was in the wrong grade to begin with.
Well, it obviously all worked out. So then you have this business. You got a pretty substantial payroll. What made you decide to run for public office and ultimately win and become a state rep?
In one simple word, jobs. Really, I mean, I don't need anything from the system. You know, fortunately, you know, Rhode Island has been beautiful to me. I love Rhode Island. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. But I can't tell you how many times I've been told, time and time again, my son just graduated college. He's on his way to wherever, Carolina, Pennsylvania, Georgia, can't find a job, and he's leaving. Dave, I think we're losing our farm system. You know, as anybody who knows anything about sports, you can't just keep getting old. You have to keep refreshing. And too many kids are getting educated, and then they have to leave because they can't find a job.
Well, the fact that you do operate a rather substantial business, I think would lend itself well to maybe coming up with some good ideas and some fresh ideas in order for making us more business friendly. I've used this quote before, but Abraham Lincoln once said, before you can have employees, you must have employers. And what was your first year like? I mean, was it what you expected?
Well, simply, I think my first year was good. It was educational, but it didn't take me long to figure out why we have the problem that we have today. You know, unfortunately, I think we're losing sight of who we're representing. You know, it's all about the people. We're representing the people, and I like to look at everything legislatively. What are we doing, and how is this helping? If it's helping, let's do it. If it's hurting, let's not do it. I mean, we have constituents.
Well, you are a part of the rather small but nonetheless important Republican caucus. You obviously, I think maybe your business training hit the ground running because you introduced a package of bills that focused on economic development. So when you said jobs was important, you got busy your very first year in office. You have to be pleased that the legislation dealing with the Economic Development Corporation, for example, was very remarkably similar to what you had suggested, and you worked diligently on economic development. You have to be somewhat happy with the progress you made your first year.
Well, that package of legislation was, you know, bittersweet, just to not sugarcoat it, bittersweet, because I didn't think it went far enough. You know, at the end of the day, I'm not crazy about the fact that it was, you know, shelved until 2015 because the problem is right now. You know, we shouldn't be putting this thing off. You know, our unemployment in Rhode Island has been below the national average for about 8 years now, and that's too much. You know, we're the smallest state in the union. We should be the easiest state to run. People should be looking at us like, how does Rhode Island do it? So, yes, it's well-intentioned. I agree. I mean, I'm very grateful that the package, to some degree, it did go through. But I don't think it went enough. I don't think it went far enough. Like, one example would be the person who would be the director of economic development, or the secretary of economic development, whatever the title that we give this person. I set a big criteria. The criteria is that I wanted to make sure that someone that was running a baseball card shop didn't get that job. Not to say he's not qualified, but to put it in the grand scheme of things, I've been in business for almost 30 years. I am not qualified based on the criteria that I set on that bill. I wanted somebody to be far-reaching, you know, international experience, you know, national experience, not necessarily from Rhode Island, just to get a totally different look from the outside in rather than the inside out.
Well, you want that Economic Development Corporation completely revamped. I mean, you want it almost start over.
Yeah, because if economic development is important, let's make it important. You know, it really is important. You know, there's so much that we can do, Dave. You know, I have a bunch of things running through my head all the time. How can we do this to get more jobs in Rhode Island? Because at the end of the day, jobs is everything.
You know, and jobs solve a lot of problems. You've also created a panel of economic advisors. That too was enacted, right?
Yes.
Now, I get the feeling that that's going to be kind of like a brain trust, a reservoir of talent, of information, of ideas. Do I have it right?
Yes, definitely. And again, you know, we'll see how it goes when it gets implemented. But again, I wanted a little bit more outreach with that. I wanted more people from the way outside that have a lot of experience in this sort of thing.
What would be a couple of your ultimate goals you'd like to see that would come from that?
Just to get some ideas as how do they do it in other states? You know, how do they do it in other countries? You know, there's a lot we can do, but I think sometimes we get short-sighted. You know, we're looking at too much. We're looking at today rather than tomorrow. You know, there's a lot of things that we can do. We can promote certain businesses. Like right now, there's a lot of things in renewable energy. I see a big need for that. Solar panels. I mean, whatever it is, you name it, we have it. We can do it. We have so many factories here. We have people that are qualified to do these things. We have people that are machinists and tool makers that can do that kind of stuff in their sleep. And I think we're missing it. We're missing an opportunity.
You know, I should point out, because there's this misconception among some citizens that when session recesses, you folks just all go to your respective districts and rejoin your families and go back to living what is a normal life. But in reality, most of you have a lot of other duties and responsibilities that require you to obviously to be here on a day like today, but you also are a part of some commissions, one of which is kind of interesting. It's studying tolls and our transportation system here in Rhode Island. Tell me about that.
Well, being the only member in the delegation from the West Bay, so people ask me, do you have skin in the game? And simply put, yes, I do, because we're all one state. I mean, do I cross the Sakonnet River Bridge? Maybe I did it 5 times in my lifetime, because most people that are on this side of the bay don't usually go on that side and vice versa. But at the end of the day, we are one state, and I feel for them. As a business person, I'm saying to myself, how can that impact it? What if it were here? What if we had a bridge? What if the bridge that goes over 95 was a toll bridge? What would happen to Dunkin' Donuts that's on the other side? Maybe somebody might go to a different donut shop. Maybe they'll go to a different gas station or a different supermarket or whatever. So from a business perspective, I think it hurts. And I think what we do too many times, we rely too much on revenue. Revenue is great, but at the end of the day, you have to start looking at where can you cut. As I recall, one night during budget night, we cut $12 million in one overnight. I'm not saying it's easy, but we really have to start looking at what can we do to stop constantly looking at revenues.
Well, I would almost like to see nationally something happen like we had in the WPA days. I walk on sidewalks here in Rhode Island sometimes that were actually put in place by WPA workers that are still in terrific shape and still look great, because our infrastructure, not only here in Rhode Island, but around the country, is really failing. And that's expensive. That's, again, that's something you know about. When you do capital improvements on your building, or you do expansions, or you're buying new equipment, it's real pricey. The money's got to come from somewhere.
Right. And you don't always have it. And if, obviously, maintenance it's critical. I'm not gonna say it's not critical. It is critical. But right now we don't have. We have certain things that are supposed to be earmarked for such things, and they're not. So we need to clean up the way we do things. We pay, by a recent report, we pay $60,000 per mile of lane miles in Rhode Island, compared to $40,000 per mile in Massachusetts. That's a huge disparity. We should start looking at that as well. So what I'm saying is...
Well, wait a minute. Why is their amount so much less?
That's a good question. I think we should look into that. Granted, we have more miles that are affected by the coastline than they do, but there's got to be a little bit more to it than that. I would love to take a closer look to see what the reason is for that. But bottom line is, we're already very highly taxed. We're not like the lowest tax base. We're not the lowest property tax. We're not the lowest sales tax. So why do we have to keep, you put a toll on there, in my opinion, it's a double taxation.
Well, I know a lot of people on that Sakonnet toll were sure up in arms, and even though it's not a very large amount, people are sure up in arms about it. I mean, could it conceivably go away?
Well, I can see why they're up in arms, because you're not, if you had a toll there that was $1, and then they were proposing to make it $1.25, you could almost make a case, it is what it is. But it was zero before. So from zero to anything, you're going to have a lot of pushback. So I understand their situation.
And again, too, with our geographical location and the proximity of other states to get to swiftly to do business in those other states and commerce maybe in those other states, I could see somebody making a case saying, hey, we're going to lose business. We're going to lose some business as a result of this. I can understand their frustration as you do over those tolls. But again, our bridges must be safe. Our streets and roads, in some cases around the state as I travel, they're horrible. They're in bad shape. We need to do a lot of work on our infrastructure here. And it's just one of the more costly things that we get involved in. You're saying it's costly, but maybe we can do it at a better price.
I think we can.
Okay, as we look back at your year in the General Assembly, you got to be thrilled that one of the very first bills, which merged the fire districts in East Greenwich, was signed into law. Not only, is it kind of rare sometimes for freshman people to get legislation passed, you did it fairly swiftly, and you got to be pretty proud of that.
Well, I am very proud of it, but it was a lot of, first of all, it was the will of the people. That's first and foremost. I'm a big supporter of people having, when they want something and it was so overwhelming, there shouldn't be a lot of resistance. There was a resolution from the town council last year, and it passed unanimously, and then it was approved by the people in a referendum by a 2-to-1 margin to consolidate the service. And it's not to say that the East Greenwich Fire District didn't do a good job, because by all accounts they did a great job. They just wanted to merge it into one, put it under the administration of the town council. So with that being said, there was a lot of cooperation between the fire department, the town council, the state senate, because we had a bill in the Senate as well, and it went through very smoothly. And the governor came and signed the bill. It was a historic day, and he came to the East Greenwich Town Hall to sign that bill.
That East Greenwich Town Hall is quite a place too. It was the former State House.
It's beautiful.
And it's a magnificently restored building, and we did a special on it a few years ago. And it's magnificent. It's a great place and historic, and I think it's kind of cool that the governor elected to sign it there. It was obviously fitting and appropriate. And so when that happened, was the goal to become more efficient and save money too?
I think it's just more to for accountability and governance. The way that it was constructed before, they needed a quorum of, I believe it was 30 to vote in the fired the members there, the commissioners.
Right.
And they were responsible for 10% of the town budget. So that's no small number. So the town just decided that they wanted to have everything under one roof and control it, just like they control the fire department. They wanted to have, the police department. They wanted a fire department, and so on.
I just moved down in your neighborhood, in your neck of the woods there.
Welcome.
Well, let me tell you something. The people have been terrific. It's a thriving community. It was a bit of culture shock, having spent a number of years in Pawtucket. But it's a great place. I have to believe that you represent one of the areas that is really the livability, the quality of life down there, and the proximity to things that you have in East Greenwich and West Greenwich is really terrific. And even though I've only been there a couple of months, I've really liked it. You've got to be thrilled to be able to represent those folks.
It's a great town, and the people are very passionate about the quality of life that they have. If you go to, the school system is very good. You can go to back to school nights or parent-teachers nights, and the attendance is off the charts. So that always speaks volumes of how engaged the parents are.
I don't know, is downtown East Greenwich in your district?
Yes.
Okay, because the other day, it was a Saturday morning, and the traffic was really heavy, and there were all kinds of people out, and I was wondering what the heck's going on. And the local merchants were handing out candy to the children in their trick-or-treat costumes, in their Halloween costumes. It was terrific. There seems to be a great community spirit there. The local merchants, many of them have water dishes for the dogs that people walk, and just little touches like that, attention to detail. And it's kind of a throwback in time because, I'm not even sure if you're aware of this. I think it was the Travel Channel just came and did a special. They did a taping in East Greenwich. They're doing a series after Thanksgiving called Small Town USA. And East Greenwich was selected to be featured. And I think that's a real feather in our cap, and it's good for our state because, like you, I really like living here. I think the quality of life here is fantastic. but we're not without our problems.
Right. Well, what I like to do is I like to focus on the positives. I mean, I think Rhode Island I think it's a diamond in the rough. You know, our proximity to New York and Boston, you know, we're 3 hours away from the beaches in Florida on airplane. We're 3 hours away from skiing in New Hampshire and Vermont and Maine. It's a jewel. You know, there's too many people focus on the negatives. I want to really start looking at things from a positive perspective and really get everything straightened out from that perspective.
You had another bill that made it through the House, unfortunately didn't make it through the Senate, that would allow advertising for beer and wine tasting events. What was the problem with this? I see a lot of beer and wine advertising in the media. What was that legislation all about?
It's something that speaks to what one of our problems happens to be, is that it's a business-friendly bill. You know, if someone has a wine shop or a little liquor store, and they have Dave Barber, the famous guy that makes this unbelievable Cabernet from Napa Valley, and everybody loves Dave Barber, they can't advertise, hey, Dave Barber's going to be in next Saturday for a wine tasting. They have to put a little poster on their window and hope that people see it and the word gets out. And that's precisely what happened.
So is that a state law that prohibits them from doing that?
The state law right now is that you can only advertise on premises. You can't advertise in email blasts, Facebook, you know, local newspapers, if there's a wine or beer tasting. And it's so business friendly, it doesn't even make sense that there's such a law.
Well, will you reintroduce it come January?
Absolutely. I want to think that the reason that it didn't pass is because it just ran out of time and the Senate didn't have time to hear it. But I'm going to introduce it early on and hopefully it gets through. There's really no common sense reason why something so simple can't happen.
You know, also, I want to thank you on behalf of Capital TV. You invited us to your district recently, and we spent the day with you and some of your friends and people that you've become very familiar with. And we took a look at this big river management area. And until I met you, I'm embarrassed to say I was not familiar with the big river management area. And when I got there, I was blown away. I mean, it's an enormous amount of land. Much of it is in your district. Why is that so important to you, and why did you think it was important that the Rhode Island TV viewers learn about it?
Well, I mean, first of all, don't be embarrassed for not knowing about it because you're definitely in the majority. It's very important because it hits home to so many people that are passionate about it. Mostly the West Greenwich people, the folks out there, because they have family members. One of them, Kathy Swan, her family lived there. They had over 900 acres.
But why is that important to you? Why? Because we're coming up on kind of a milestone, like a 50-year. There was some kind of an agreement that the governor 50 years ago entered into with these folks, and you want to make sure that the property doesn't become a condominium development.
Right. Well, that's for sure because it was taken over because there was a demand for more water. They thought that they needed more water for the expansion of the southern part of Rhode Island. There was a lot of development going on, so they needed water. So they took it over. They bought these properties from these family farmers and any landowners, and just because they were going to make this 8,600-acre parcel into a reservoir. Well, as it turned out, the Army Corps of Engineers and the Department of at that time it was Natural Resources.
Right.
They find that it was not going to be able to hold water the way that initially they were going to. So it's not ever going to be a reservoir as they thought it was going to be. But now they want to, the people that are passionate about it, myself included, would like to keep it in the pristine condition that it's in right now.
It's like half of the land area of West Greenwich, right? I mean, the area that makes up West Greenwich, 50% of the real estate is this property.
I'm not exactly sure about the percentage, but I know it's a pretty big one.
It's significant.
Yes.
And, for people that enjoy the outdoors and nature and hiking and rock climbing, I mean, we saw rock formations, we saw streams and ponds. Dr. Swan told us about there are some species of wildlife in plant life that is unique only to that area, that's very uncommon anywhere else. It's a beautiful, beautiful place that, again, I think if a person wanted to get some exercise and be close to nature, it's a marvelous facility, and it's beautiful just the way that it is. Have you heard like rumblings that somebody would like to maybe do something with it, or possibly try to parcel it out or try to make some money off of it some way?
I haven't heard it, but I'm taking a preemptive strike to make sure that it doesn't happen. A few years ago, they were toying around with putting the state police barracks there, and the local people, they voiced their opposition to it because they said, don't forget what the original intent of this land was, so they squashed it.
It has to be, I'm guessing now, the largest parcel of undeveloped land in our entire state. I can't believe there's any area larger than that. How many acres did you say it was again?
I believe it's about 8,600 acres.
Wow.
But the Arcadia management area is bigger than that.
Okay.
I believe it's considerably bigger. But it is. It's a jewel. Well, you've been there, so I'm glad you were able to go there and see it for yourself. It's a great place to go hiking and biking and all that stuff and go back to nature.
Yeah, and I want to remind our viewers, too, we'll be airing this special that we did with Rep. Giarrusso on the Big River project. It's amazing. And again, it was a gorgeous, bright summer or fall day, but bright sun and crisp, and the fall colors were out. It's really breathtaking when you see it and you're having a lazy Saturday and you want to take your kids and get close to nature. It's definitely the place to go. You'll really enjoy it. Now, Rep, you got your first year under your belt. Session will be starting again soon in 2014. What is on your radar screen? What are your priorities? What do you want to try to get done?
It's all about getting us to be more business friendly, economic development, create some jobs, and do something to get us rolling again. You know, my Republican colleagues and I are working on this package. We've been working tirelessly on a whole package of goods, and I would love to meet up with you again early in the session, and I'll be happy to discuss them all in detail, because right now we're still dotting the I's and crossing the T's.
Well, listen, I mean, you know about business. You make that payroll every week, that 100-person payroll, and
Haven't missed one yet.
Yeah, that's a big responsibility. And you were very gracious with your time today, Representative. I wish you and your constituents and all of your fellow Republican and Democratic colleagues the very best in the coming year.
Thank you so much, Dave.
Thanks for being our guest. And of course, thanks to you too. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Dave Barber, and remember, you heard it straight from the Gavel.